So we'll move on to what we call the Limited Liability Partnership, the LLP. And the LLP is now recognized in about 40 states, and that may be a fluid number. There may be give or take one or two there. And basically, the partners are granted liability protection of the professional corporations. So it's similar with the corporations in the liability protection. Some states kind of equate an LLP with the LLC. A few of the disadvantages of the LLP are its limited lifespan. It is not recognized in all the states. Again, there's a limit of case law to setting precedent. And there's legal history. The legal history of the LLP is very limited. The advantages are that the profits and losses are subject to personal taxes only, and your personal assets are protected. Again, there's limited government interference, and it can easily be transformed into different types of a partnership. So the advantages and disadvantages of professional corporations are kind of listed out here. The advantages include personal assets being protected from business liability. There are some tax advantages for the personal income of the shareholders, and there's a deferment on the fringe benefits for the different people within a corporation. The disadvantages of the professional corporation is it's limited to a single profession. So before we talked about health or law or architecture, whatever it may be, you're limited to a single profession. The shareholders are limited to licensed professionals within that profession. The shareholders are liable to clients as a group, and there's pretty extensive corporate paperwork to developing a professional corporation. So the advantages and disadvantages of professional corporations are kind of listed out here. The advantages include personal assets being protected from business liability. There are some tax advantages for the personal income of the shareholders, and there's a deferment on the fringe benefits for the different people within a corporation. The disadvantages of the professional corporation is it's limited to a single profession. So before we talked about health or law or architecture, whatever it may be, you're limited to a single profession. The shareholders are limited to licensed professionals within that profession. The shareholders are liable to clients as a group, and there's pretty extensive corporate paperwork to developing a professional corporation. Next. Okay, so when you're thinking about developing a corporation for your business structure, just understand that there's different roles that different entities and people have within your corporation, including the Securities and Exchange Commission. Brokers have a certain role. There's certain state and federal monitoring that is taking place, whether that be filling out paperwork or making sure that certain standards are met. There's also tax issues to consider, whether it's the corporate income tax, how profits are taxed as income, how dividends are taxed for individuals, how salaries and wages are taxed for the different people working in the corporation, and how the properties and the assets and inventory are taxed within that business as well. The important thing, again, is to consider the different roles and how these taxes and these different role players affect your corporation. So here you have a summary of the business structures. Across the top, you'll see everything from the sole proprietorship to the LLC. On the left, you'll see the main three characteristics that we covered within each business structure being the ownership, taxing of the profits, and the liability for the corporate debts. And what you want to do is compare and contrast every business structure on this matrix and see what may be best for the type of business that you're considering. So before you start developing a business structure, make sure that you have the essentials ready for your business. What is your product or service? So you want to have an idea and a concept that gives you a unique advantage in the marketplace for your product or service. Basically, you don't want to be Joe Smith with a ton of other Joe Smiths walking around. Understand your resources. What are your resources? They may be physical, they may be personnel, they may be location, or they may be your financial situation. Make sure that you have a relationship with each of these resources and different people that may be involved in allocating and distributing these resources. Finally, you want to make sure that you have the right market. You have clients that are available that may want to take on your product or your service. So what do you need to start your business? You need venture capital, and venture capital is an investment. These are resources that are invested into your business idea. Initially, you'll need cash. This will allow you to start your initial operations, such as paying employees and buying things. Going further on, venture capital may take other forms, but for now, you need to think about money. So to go back to our original objectives were to understand the legal structures of business in the United States. So we covered quite a few of those. Another objective was to understand the advantages and disadvantages of each structure. So with each structure, we talked about the advantages and disadvantages, and there toward the end of the lecture, we also had a matrix for you to view, and you can go back and look at that matrix at any time. And then the final objective was to be able to choose the appropriate structure for your business or project. Now, what you need to do is think about the advantages and disadvantages of each structure and how that overlays with what you want to do with your business. That concludes our lecture on the business structure in the United States. We covered 3 objectives within this presentation. The first objective was to understand the legal structures of business in the United States. We gave you a brief overview, and these can vary depending on the state with their name, their structure, and any other details. Be sure to do your research and understand what structure you need for your project. We also went over the advantages and disadvantages of the structures we displayed. Feel free to take a look back at those advantages and disadvantage slides and get a good understanding of what may be the best structure for your business. Do your research. And finally, we hope we were able to help you choose an appropriate structure. Now, we understand that this isn't the final be-all decision after viewing this presentation, but this gave you a pretty good overview, like we said earlier, and you can kind of look forward and understand where you're going from here with your project.